What is the reason why you voted for Donald Trump then?
Because Kamala Harris is evil.
Kamala. How is Kamala Harris evil?
She's a puppet. She's a puppet. I just think that it's a tactic people use to like dehumanize like people's arguments and stuff, and I just think it's not really like a very.
You can't dehumanize an argument.
It doesn't really. You can see it. Just Parker. I can see right through Kamala Harris, bro. Like, I don't think that black people should be using the N-word.
Okay, I'm not marginalized for being white. I'm not marginalized for being a man, right?
I think you
Historically
are.
speaking,
I didn't vote, but I would have voted for Donald Trump if I got up.
why so?
I think it's the common lesser of the two evils. I think that Donald Trump 100% has all the values that I hold myself. Not all of them, a lot of people, like no one's perfect, I don't have any idols, but I'd definitely say that Kamala Harris is
Kamala.
Yeah.
And how old are you, by the way?
22.
Okay, so what values specifically do you have that are upheld by the other side?
If I could just list a couple. He's pro-life, not as pro-life as I'd like him to be, but he is pro-life. He supports Christians. I don't know if I'm a Christian, so you can already. There was a video of Kamala Harris at a rally saying Christians shouldn't be there. So
no, that's actually not what it is at all. She's a Christian herself. Not only that, but it is the case that she was responding to people who are Trump supporters that were heckling the crowd. So it was in response to them being a Trump supporter, not them being Christian, because again, she is Christian herself.
But like in the video, you can clearly hear the guy saying Jesus, yelling Jesus is king, and then like she's like, "Oh, we don't need that here," bring that.
That was in response to them being Trump supporters heckling the crowd, not in response to them saying Jesus is king.
But in the video,
again,
literally in the video,
again, Jacob, she's literally Christian.
That's interesting to know that. But so how can she be a Christian, a so-called Christian, and then support pro-choice, quote unquote?
Okay, so are you saying that like if you are Christian or you follow Christian values, then you will restrict women from getting access to abortion legally?
I think that if you're a Christian, that means that you can't take a human life.
Okay,
I think that.
Oh, then let me ask you this question: when God commanded Saul and his men to slaughter the men, women, children, and infants of Amalek, does that make them not Christian, given that they followed some of it but not all of it?
Okay, can you give me like a Bible verse that supports that? Can you?
Yes, 1 Samuel 15:3. You can tell me what version you like too.
King James.
Dude, it's so cringe.
Can you read
it's
it
like
word
just,
for word?
But that's just so like it's so literally difficult to read. But I mean, I'll still do it.
It is hard. It is hard.
It says, "Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them, but both men and woman, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey."
It's so funny, Parker, because a lot of the time when I see a lot of people bringing up a lot of these like it's so hard. It's so hard because it sounds so silly, right? Like why? Like no one would follow a God that commands someone to go murder like innocent people. Like that isn't this story in the Bible. This is about a story in the Bible, and the thing is like I'm not like now you want to debate Christianity or like moving away from Donald Trump towards Christianity, but like
that's what you use to justify your abortion stance.
Well, no. I also use science because science tells us that life starts at conception.
Yeah, but that doesn't grant any moral value for life at conception. Science doesn't actually determine like your morality.
Science says that a human life starts at conception, and so when does a life receive human rights? Parker.
I don't dispute that life begins at conception. I agree that life begins at conception. What I dispute is that the value of human beings starts at conception. I think the value of human beings starts at sentience, subjective experience. It'd be past or present and future subjective experience in that conjunction.
Okay, so say there's a human life, or no, not a human life yet. Okay, and then it experienced sentience, and then it lives for 80 years, and then suddenly the 80-year-old man is no longer sentient for whatever reason. Has the life ended?
Their sentient life has. Their biological life is still there. Like, for example, with people who are brain dead, well, individuals that are brain dead, it is the case that they don't have any subjective experience anymore, but they are still biologically, like, cellularly alive. Do you think it's murder to pull the plug on an individual in your family that's brain dead?
It depends on what they wanted, but
If they didn't
um,
identify what they wanted, if they didn't have a DNR, if they didn't have anything, should it be considered murder if you pull the plug on them?
I think it would be, yeah, and
You
then
would?
I think that the way that's determined is next of kin. Whoever is next of kin in your family, and who was, you know, most influential in that person's life, I believe they're qualified to make that decision, whether that
Oh,
be the
okay,
mother
if
or
they can make that decision, well, then why shouldn't a sentient woman be able to make a choice to literally restrict her bodily resources from going to an embryo in the first trimester?
father. Did you know, Parker, that what's it called when a pregnant lady gets into a car crash and then like, what do you know what that's called? But like, so like, I say I'm driving a car, right, and I
Are,
go
are
kill
you
a
trying to
pregnant
say
lady.
because legally it's defined as double homicide, that means I have to consider it double homicide, or that I have to consider it a
Well,
person?
why is it? Why do we define it as double homicide, Parker? Like, have you ever looked at that?
Why do we
We
why do
just
we why do we judge how old people are based upon birthdays if it is the case that life begins at conception? So just
because
because
it
something
show
is cur-
because
wait,
it.
just because wait, just
What are
because
you
something got
talking about?
just because something has a cultural definition, right, in a particular way doesn't mean that we decide to define it that way, right? You think life begins at conception, right? But if I were to ask you how old you are, you would base it upon your birthday. Those are cultural. Okay, so
Yeah,
again,
because that was my
I
birthday.
yeah,
That was the day I was birthed. It's not the day I was conceptualized. It's
I
not
when
my
I asked you,
conception day.
hold up, I asked you how old you are,
Yeah,
right? Asking how old you are is about your life, right?
it's your age. It's the age from the day you were born, Parker.
Why?
Because that was the day you were born. The day
Because it's
you
cultural. Because
came out of the.
that's our cultural designation around it. So again, just because we had a cultural designation around double homicide doesn't mean that I have to consider that double homicide, or that it is the case that, right, it is double homicide, right?
So what do you
Neither of
consider
those
it
are
then?
entailed. It would be one person dying, and then it would also be like a termination of a pregnancy. It just wouldn't be considered a person at the point in which it's an embryo.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy. Okay,
How is
so
that crazy?
it's just that's crazy to me.
How so? Also, you kind of backed off of the point that, like, if you call for like the death of like someone, if you kill someone, that you're not Christian, given that again in 1 Samuel 15:3, God commanded Saul and his men to slaughter the men, women, children, and infants of Amalek. You said that no one would follow a
You
God.
need to look
Hold up,
more into that story.
hold up. I have. You said specifically that no one would ever follow a God that commands that. Well, then you shouldn't follow a God that commanded that.
Listen. I maybe I made a mistake bringing up Christianity because I'm definitely like I'm definitely not as qualified. Maybe you need to debate Cliff Connectly or Stuart Connectly on this.
I would love to. I
That
would
would go
love to debate
viral.
Cliff.
But I just think that when you read the Bible and you read all the teachings in the Bible, I don't think there's one thing that you'll I mean, maybe you will disagree with a lot of it just because like it's you're a little left wing, but I don't.
Anyone should disagree with it. It's whether or not you have basic human values, like if whether or not you think it's wrong to genocide people or to
Do you agree? Do
enslave
you disagree
people.
with any of the Ten Commandments?
Yes,
Which ones?
lying is not always wrong. I can give you examples. For example, would you lie to save people's lives? Yeah, right.
Yeah, I would, but that's I don't
You,
think that's not really what. See, the thing is, Parker, is like when it comes to stuff like that, you're taking a principle that the Bible says and applying it completely, literally across the board. You see, I see why you do it
is that
because
not what you do?
it's a
Isn't
good way to
every
trap. No,
the 10 Commandments are not always wrong?
the Ten Commandments are always right, but you have to
Okay.
take everything in life with a grain of salt, Parker. If I told Parker, if I said, Parker, There you could jump off this bridge. I've seen a bunch of people jump off this bridge, and there's money down there. You go get it. Like you're not gonna jump off the bridge. You take everything in life with a grain of salt, Parker. You don't just,
Well,
you
because
know what
there's
I
no
mean?
evidence of that. I don't believe that because there's no evidence of it. But you believe in religion without any evidence, and then
No,
you
there.
force that upon everyone else as if they should have to live by it just because you
Okay,
believe in the book.
okay. Listen. It's not because I read a book. It's not just because I read a book. Parker. If you see a painting, right? A completely detailed, complete like picture, like it's a fire painting, bro. You know, with through all the detail and all the colors and the different colors and all, it was designed. It was specifically the painting was planned out, designed, and executed by someone or something. It didn't just get the painting didn't just paint itself, right? The
Hmm.
painting didn't just paint itself.
Hmm.
That's why that's the problem with a lot of atheist claims, right? Nothing didn't make something, right? Nothing that had a creation has to have a creator, correct? Do you agree?
Well, because that would be implicated by it being a creation. But listen, here's the point that I would respond to that with is that because we have priors and experiences with paintings that they require designers or creators,
I'm
right?
sorry,
But
what?
yeah, we have prior experiences with right paintings that indicate that they have designers, right, or that they have creators. But we have no prior experiences with universes that they are created by intelligent beings, right? And we could also say that just because something exists, if you're saying it has a creator, well, God exists, therefore God is a creator. No,
Parker.
you dispute that because you say that God is eternal. Well, couldn't there be something naturalistic that was eternal that led to our existence? There's nothing that's disputing that as an explanation. Right. Secondly, you brought up Cliff. Cliff literally says it's impossible to be agnostic because you can't say that you don't know. But then, literally, when it comes to scripture, says that he doesn't know all the answers of how God tells you should act or all
Parker,
the answers as
Parker,
to why suffering exists within the world.
Parker, we are not God, Parker. We can't answer. Okay. On the suffering part, how why does God allow suffering? He doesn't allow suffering. He allows people. He allows people the choice to believe in Him or not.
Which
Okay.
allows suffering, right?
Well, okay, Parker. If I was say I was God, Parker, and you were okay, you're Parker, right? And I'm God. You're Parker. Would you want me to give you the choice to believe in me, or would you make me? Would you want me to make you believe in me? I'm God. Would you?
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
I would give you the choice because that doesn't have any negative implications on other people. But for
Yeah.
example, would you give people the choice to like murder others? Would you give people the choice to murder or to rape others? No, obviously you
So
wouldn't.
now you're
You would
talking
say
about
that
free will.
certain things should be illegal, but God doesn't prescribe anything to be illegal. He allows for them to do it. All right, I
So
think people should be put in prison for rape, for murder,
isn't
for all
allowed.
of those horrendous crimes. But God doesn't believe the same thing. God believes that they should be free to do it.
So okay. Let me get this straight. You think. Say that again. You said God allows people to say that again.
Yeah, God allows people to murder others and to rape others,
He
right? I think
allows.
yeah, I think people should be restricted from doing that. So I believe laws should exist that restrict people from doing those things. But God doesn't believe that those laws should exist, right? And God believes you should have the free will to do whatever.
Where do you think? Where does God say that you should be allowed to do that?
Free will. You just said that God makes it so that everyone has free
He
will.
gave us free will. Yes, he
Yeah, and
gave us
God
free will.
can God restrict this from going? Can God restrict murderers from murdering? Yes,
No, that's not.
God is all knowing. Hold up. Sorry, my microphone keeps reducing in volume because it's getting too loud. It is the case that God he's all knowing, all powerful, and all good. God can reduce people from engaging in these crimes. God knows it's happening, and God has the power to limit it, right? But like the point I'm making is that the next of kin person, right, pulls the plug, right? You don't think it's murder because it is the case that you don't think that a person is defined by just their cellular life. You think a person is defined by their subjective experience.
No, I don't believe that. I
Wait,
believe that.
wait,
I
wait, wait.
believe that
I have
life.
I have a question. Next of kin, right? I'm next of kin to my dad, right?
Okay.
Okay. My dad relied right on this is during COVID. He got myocarditis and almost died because of myocarditis, right? Relating to COVID. And he relied on medical services to keep him alive. Literally, if someone pulled the plug, he would have died. If I were to have gone up to while he was sentient, if I were to gone up to the machines and unplugged them, which resulted in his death, would I be a
Yeah.
yes, yes. So even though, right, so then here's my point. You consider it a person when it's my dad who relies on medical services, but the brain dead individual that relies on medical services isn't a person, and that's why the next of kin, if they were to pull the plug, wouldn't be committing. But if I were to have been pulling the plug on my dad, right, who is sentient, who relies on those medical services, right, then that wouldn't be considered murder, even though I'm next of kin. What's the difference? Subjective experience.
You're making me think hard here. I think that a life that is in the womb is just as valuable as a person who has lived a full life and they're no longer sentient. They're still the same value in my eyes.
Well, then you just prove my point. If the next of kin can pull the plug on an individual who's brain dead, and you said that they're just as much value as the life inside the womb, well, then the next of kin, i.e., the person who's pregnant, should be able to pull the plug on the like embryo, right?
No, because that's not their life. That's a different life.
Okay, but then why didn't you say that about pulling the plug on an individual that's brain dead? The next of kin can do that, and that's not murder, even though that's a cellular life.
Yeah, I actually take that back. You can't do that. You're making me. You honestly, this is good. You're making me think really hard, Parker. You're making me think really hard. But I don't think I take it back because I could literally like hate my mother. You could literally hate your dad, but just be next of kin and just want him dead. So you pull the plug. You see that? You see?
But if they're brain dead, it doesn't matter to me. If again, like the reason why I consider it to be valuable is the past or present and future subjective experience. That's what I consider to be valuable, and that explains our intuitions about like when we think it's wrong to pull the plug or when we think it's wrong to. Otherwise, you're just gonna have like these insane views.
So you think so you think that someone who's brain dead should just be dead? Should just like we should just kill them. We should just pit every single person.
I think a family should be able to determine that. But if they don't have any family and there's no one to determine it, I do think that the doctor should pull the plug. Because those medical services could be used for other people. And when they're brain dead, that means that they have no chance of coming back. If they had a chance of coming back, well, then I would think it's wrong to pull the plug.
Well, I think I agree with you.
Okay. Well, then abortion wouldn't be the reason why you voted for Donald Trump. It wouldn't be the reason why you support Trump. Because again, that would be no difference for them under your perspective, unless you're pro-choice now.
No, I'm definitely not pro-choice, brother.
Well, then we can keep talking about that later. But then here would be my question: what is the reason why you voted for Donald Trump then?
Because Kamala Harris is evil.
Kamala, how is Kamala Harris evil?
She's a puppet. She's a puppet. Like
How is she a
he
puppet?
says, and I see this a lot. I see it's a common like thing. Like this is why people call her Pinocchio, because she's literally like strung up. She can't like say anything that she has a script. You see the video of her like doing a debate, and she has a script. She's reading off a script. She's like she's like looking at the script. Donald Trump doesn't do that.
That's not true at the debates. If you look at the debates between her and Donald Trump, particularly right for the presidential election, you can literally see Donald Trump get dog walked. He
I
literally got
can't
dog walked so hard that he said that she was wearing an earpiece to give her all the answers.
look. I can't find a video where Donald Trump is doing an interview and he's staring at a screen, reading everything word for word off the screen, because that's what he's supposed to say. I can't find videos.
I actually don't know a single interview where you're talking about she's reading off a teleprompter.
You have it was on Joe Rogan. You should look at it. Joe Rogan went over this.
She didn't read a teleprompter on Joe Rogan.
She's looking at it. Yeah, it's clear as day. You go look up the video.
She didn't go on Joe Rogan.
No, she didn't go on Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan shows a video of her literally staring at a screen in front of everybody, reciting what's on the screen.
You mean a teleprompter? You know that Donald Trump has used teleprompters before, right?
Parker, my point is he doesn't. Kamala Harris has a script.
Kamala. No, she doesn't. I'll give you an example. The debates. She had no script, and she completely dog walked Donald Trump.
The point I brought this up is because it's common between a lot of the left wing people, a lot of the people who are Democrats. They have to say these things. Parker, you have to say these things or you'd be canceled. You know?
Say what things?
Like, I don't know. Like, I'll sit here and say abortion is murder, and you'll come at me and say that I hate women.
One, I never said that in this entire conversation.
Well, no,
Two,
I know, but that's like a common thing. Like people like, oh, you control women's bodies.
I mean,
That's like a common thing that, and you
you
have to,
you
Parker.
actively
You
are.
have you specifically. Everybody has to attack you with that once you bring up. Oh,
I never once said that in this conversation. So what do
I'm
I
not
have to
saying
say?
I'm not saying you've done it here, but you definitely have done it before, Parker.
There are actively people, absolutely, they're advocating to control women's bodies because they don't give a shit about the life. They care about controlling women. That's actively a
I
fact about certain people. Now, I don't argue against that as my typical argument, right? But there are absolutely certain people I descriptively will acknowledge just want to control women's
I
bodies
agree.
and have
I
no
agree.
concern for the life of the embryo or the zygote or of the fetus. They only care about controlling the women.
I agree. There's bad apples. I agree, but
So then what's wrong with my description? You said I have to say these things. I didn't say this to you.
well, I just think that it's a tactic people use to like dehumanize like people's arguments and stuff, and I just think it's not really like a very.
You can't dehumanize an argument.
You can't. Well, you dehumanize the ethics of the person speaking, like right. So like, if I were to say abortion is murder, you say, oh, so you believe that women can't choose what they do with their bodies. You know, you attack me. You attack me with this thing. You know, that could have the ability to ruin a lot of things in my life, right?
Sorry, can you repeat what you just said? I was talking to
Well,
my girlfriend.
it's just the common like you see because you see how we brought up earlier. You didn't say you said when I ask a blue senator, do you think that abortion is murder? And then he says I believe that women should be able to do what they choose with their body. And I said no. When do you believe life begins? And he says I believe people because they're puppets, Parker. They don't answer the questions. Kamala Harris doesn't answer questions. Donald Trump answers questions.
Kamala Harris did
See?
answer questions, and Donald Trump did not answer questions. I don't know what you're talking about. Tell me what his answer was in terms of his health care plan. He got asked that question for 9 years, and he just said concepts of a plan for 9 years. I'm sorry, you guys did no research into looking what Donald Trump's answers were to these questions, and you are only willing to apply these standards to Kamala Harris. I have no reason why, but you're only willing to apply these standards to Kamala Harris because all of these things are worse about Donald Trump. Donald Trump constantly would not answer questions. Donald Trump didn't go on 60 Minutes because it is the case that he didn't want to get asked hard questions. He constantly, right, said these things, and then you guys never acknowledged it with that.
What reason would Donald Trump have to go on this where he knows he's not going to win? Like what? Like he knows nothing good can come out of it.
He went in
So like
2020.
why would he go
Oh,
to those interviews?
so then why do you apply that standard to Kamala Harris? That she
I
has to go
don't.
to all these interviews, or that she has
I
to go out and
don't.
do all
No,
those things.
I never said that. I just says that she has a script when she's told what to say.
Donald Trump has teleprompters. Donald Trump didn't know who he pardoned. He had to go check who he pardoned because he had no clue.
Dude, I don't care about that, bro.
Who's determining who's getting pardoned?
Dude, it doesn't really you can see it just Parker. I can see right through Kamala Harris, bro. Like I can't.
Kamala. Just say Harris at this point.
Okay.
Dude, I don't know how it's that difficult to say her name correctly. Like it's really not. It's not difficult at all, right? You're just like purposefully saying her name incorrectly.
Why does it matter?
Because it's a microaggression to purposefully say black women's names wrong, right, in order to take away from their validity.
What?
I'm sorry, why is that confusing for you?
So if I say someone's name wrong,
if you are purposefully saying their name wrong to demean them.
No, I wasn't purposely saying her name wrong. I
Okay,
guess I just did it.
Well, then you can just say Harris as a preventative mechanism.
All right, I'll say Harris, just so you don't get your panties in a bunch.
That's insane to say that. Again, you're just why are you associating that with like me like doing something that you see as like unjustified?
Well, because it's just silly. It's just like
How's it silly?
I mispronounced your name. You know? It's
Yeah,
like,
but how many times did I correct you? If you mispronounced my girlfriend's name, I would correct you.
bro.
And I would have said that to you. If you mispronounce my girlfriend's name, that's disrespectful. I will not stand up for you saying that about my girlfriend and keep mispronouncing her name
What do you mean
purposefully.
stand up about me mispronouncing your girlfriend's name? You see
Yes, yeah. If someone in person mispronounces my girlfriend's name repeatedly over and over again, I will correct them. Would you correct them if they did that with your girlfriend?
I'd correct them once, but if then they just keep doing it, then I'm just like, dude, like.
Okay, well then apparently you don't care about your people around your girlfriend respecting your girlfriend. That's crazy. That's actually insane to say that you wouldn't correct them from like disrespecting your girlfriend.
That's not disrespectful,
It is
bro.
absolutely disrespectful. Unless
I
there's something
wasn't. I
preventing
wasn't.
them, unless
I,
there's something preventing them from doing it, you should be doing that.
you say one time, yeah. Hey, my girlfriend's name is this. I don't know
Yeah,
if you.
and if you keep doing it after, I'll keep correcting you. But if the 10th time you're still doing it, I'll be like, yo, say Harris. And if you're not doing it at this point, is there something purposefully that you're doing? That's totally fair for me to ask. If the 10th
Well,
time you're still mispronouncing it.
I guess you have a reason to ask me, but I still, and it's debatable whether it's debatable purposely mispronouncing. Is it just black women, or is it
No,
ever
you could say this about any
across the
other.
board? Okay,
Yeah,
that's
my girlfriend's not black, but yet I would still consider it a microaggression for men specifically to do that because she's a woman.
okay. So if she was white and it would be the same thing as a black woman.
No, because I believe in intersectionality.
So you think that if I pronounce a black person's name, a black woman's name, just woman?
No, a black man, you could be
Okay.
engaging in a
Yeah, yeah.
microaggression
So
against
so
them
if
by
I
doing the same thing.
mispronounce a black guy's name on purpose, say it's
Yeah,
on purpose.
that's microaggressive. Yeah,
No, 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 no. Hold on. How okay, how is that microaggressive though? How?
because it's historically been used to demean people who are black, to demean women.
Okay, planes were used to cause 9/11. Does that mean planes are
Charge
bad? No.
$22. I don't see what the association was between those two.
Well, no, you're saying that say what you just said.
I said historically, the mispronunciation of of particular people's names has been used to like demean what they're saying,
So
right?
if
And
I
especially
sit
if you're
here and
talking about,
I call you Parker, then
I'm a white, straight, cis, heterosexual man in America. Like, what are you talking about?
well, you
What
said it applies to
and
everybody.
how is that microaggressive towards me? Because you're not like shooting down, you're shooting up.
No, you're saying that okay, so it applies across the board, right?
I wouldn't say it's microaggressive, but I might say it's rude. Does that make sense?
So it only applies to black people.
No, it applies to any. Like it would apply if in the context of like women who are white. Like if you are purposefully saying their name
So
incorrectly
just
to
not
demean
white men.
well, yeah, because there's no like oppressive aspects or marginalization based on any immutable
I think that's
characteristic
crazy. I think
other
that
than class.
I think that Parker, in and of itself, you're giving someone special treatment because of their race.
No, I'm not.
Well, okay, so why is it wrong for me
Jacob,
to
Jacob. Right? You cannot tell me that it is the same for a white person to say the N word as a black person saying the N word. You agree that there's a distinction, right?
No, I agree.
Are you saying it's unfair that people who are not black can't say the N word?
Parker, don't hit me with that one. No, I don't think that white.
You
I
don't
don't
think
think
that's
that
unfair? So
Parker, Parker,
is that
Parker.
special? Is that special treatment?
No,
No,
stop.
no.
Parker,
Okay, so
I
do you see
don't
the
think
point that
that
I'm making?
anybody. I don't think that black people should be using the N word.
Okay, but do you see it the same?
What?
Also, I don't think you should be the one determining. That's kind of crazy, but like you understand that there's a distinction between right different groups saying certain things, right? Like again, like a woman, right?
I
Say
agree because okay, I agree. I think if a black guy wants to call himself the N word, then I think it's better if than a white person calling that guy the N. Yes, obviously,
yeah,
yes.
you can understand the distinction based on who's
Okay,
saying that. That's a part of intersectionality.
okay, okay. But I don't think that guy using the N word, anyone using the N word is right. I think
I'm not even making that claim. I'm just saying that you like view them differently, correct?
view what differently.
You view those two different people saying it differently.
Yes, I think that it's worse if a white guy says the N word. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So then that's at least my point. You understand it intersectionally, right? It is the case that you're going to be able to identify, right, that it would be microaggressive, right, in the context of there being like a community that's targeted towards,
Okay, but
especially historically,
I'm just wondering why does it not apply to across the board?
because there's I'm not marginalized for being white. I'm not marginalized for being a man, right?
I think you
Historically
are.
speaking, tell me
I
how.
think you are because you people discount your beliefs and what you say just because of it, just because you're white.
The least amount of people possible.
No, Parker, I
I'm
think
serious. I'm
today.
serious. I'm serious. There are more people that take into account what I'm saying simply because I'm a white man.
Parker,
You know how
if
many
you
people? What
if
are you
you
talking about?
it's only the lefties though. It's only the lefties.
No, only the lefties would be the ones like even only the extreme left, right? Would be the ones like and we're not talking about extreme left, even just communists. We're talking about extreme left in a negative connotation, right? Where people will just like they'll dispute what you say because you're a white man, right? That's obviously an absurd position, right? To dispute what someone's saying just because they're a white man.
Yeah.
But it is the case that obviously you can recognize there's a smaller group of people that dispute what white men say just because they're a white man, comparative to every other group within society. Okay?
You're saying that people dispute what white men say
Let me
less?
give you an example. Because I'm a white man, more people take into account what I have to say. If I was a white woman, less people would take into account what I have to say. If I was not a white man, less people would take into account what I have to say within the context of the society that we live in.
Why do you think that though?
Because I'm a white man in America, and I acknowledge the reality that there's nothing discriminated against me on the basis of, again, my of my sex, of my race, of my sexuality, of my class. Nothing. You can't even mention a single characteristic that I'm discriminated against on the basis of.
If you weren't left wing, Parker, you would be discriminated against. Exactly how you were just doing it to me,
No,
right?
as a conservative, I'd be discriminated. You think Charlie Kirk is discriminated against in America for being a
Because he's
white man?
white.
That's a
Yes,
conservative.
because he
Shut
talks
up,
he
dude. Come
talks.
on,
Listen to
no.
me. Listen to me. People will bring exactly that up. They'll say you're a white man. You can't have an opinion.
Dude, what? That's such a small group of people.
But you literally just said like just because white men have not been discriminated against, that means they're not allowed.
There's no type of systemic discrimination that I'm going to undergo because it is the case that systematic. There's no type of discrimination that I'm going to go to because there's a few people that have opinions like that, of course.